If we begin to look at things like this, I think there can be a quantum of foreign exchange that can come into the country before we start worrying so much about other investors, because charity always begins at home.
You know, this kind of, confidence Chamberlain talked about has to also do with our public service. This is not the first time we've seen an attempt in reforming that particular aspect of our national life. Do you still think that it still needs some form of reform to help in injecting that confidence when we talk about investing in Nigeria?
Yeah, well, the public service is the true engine of the economy, not in the sense of investment or productivity, but in the sense of making sure that policies are well thought through and implemented, and making sure that there's regulation of the system. But the public service is going through quite a lot of challenges. One of the most wonderful speeches I had recently was from the DG of the Bureau of Public Service Reforms when he was talking to staff of the Ministry of Budget and National Planning. He put it all so beautifully. There's great reform happening, but that knowledge, that information has to spread through the entire system. The civil servant, the public service has to understand that it has a powerful role to play. When we talk about the 3 arms of government, we forget that there's the public service that puts it all together in terms of the policies and the procedures. Now, if you go into the public service, apart from ghost workers and all of that stuff, there's no real commitment on the part of the workers. Why? Because we keep moving them around. Why should I have roots in a ministry when I'm getting a hang of it, I move somewhere else? There's no depth. The rotation is good, but if it's done in a wishy-washy manner, nobody commits to anything. People go to office at 10 o'clock in the morning. When this government came in, the whole body language thing, people went to the office at 7. Today, people are going to the office at 10. Civil servants are running 3 or 4 businesses. They drop their bags in their office. They go and check their private business, come back, go and pick the kids from school, come back. We can't run the government like that. But reform is being done. Donor agencies are helping. Change management is happening. It might take a little while, but there has to be political will. And we have to close the back doors where people go and lobby for office just to become PAMSEC, and that becomes an end on its own. Running the service properly is the one thing I know that's held this country back. If we can improve that, listen, if we didn't have 1 more kilowatt of energy, if we didn't have 1 more penny added to the budget, if we just got people in the public service to be more productive, we would double our GDP. We would run the country better. Things would work a lot more.
Yeah, I think it was my colleague I was speaking to, Bosin Omofai, who was saying that right now we have a public service that consumes about 2.3 trillion naira of public expenditure and only produces about 0.3% of the GDP, which is a very worrisome figure. You say that, there is some public sector reforms going on. How long really should we be looking at to see some major turnaround and some impact on the economy?
Well, it's difficult to put time on human behavior because you can't wish your way out of something you behaved your way into. There have been talks about reforming the public service, but it has to be commitment. It has to happen. It has to actually happen. On the financial side, it's happening, rooting out ghost workers, making sure people are where they say they should be. But the commitment, the drive, the motivation, these are the people, these are the best trained people in the country. And the public service, one of the beautiful things about the public service is you go abroad, you get training abroad. Before now that they say we're cutting costs, they go to Harvard, they go to Wharton, they go to Yale, they go to all of this stuff. They come back, they've got the whole cultural thing where nobody commits. But just at the point where they're beginning to see that life is more about you developing as a person, not just the job that you do, then it's time to retire. So I think the private sector has a lot to do by absorbing some of these well-trained, demotivated people in the public service and helping them get inspired. But however, the public service doesn't see the metrics. You just give some good numbers now. They consume this much, but they produce that much. They don't see their role. They're not giving enough information. The information is available at seminars, conferences, in a banquet hall, and this and that. But the average worker who is pushing paper doesn't have the things they need to do. And they don't have the tools to get the job done. Even if you had a brilliant idea and you needed to put it down and you typed it on your system, you will go from office to look for paper. And when you've got paper, you will go from office to office to look for a toner to print it. And then when you finally printed it, nobody reads it. We're killing the public service. So as much as we complain about them, the powers that be must also give them the tools they need to get the job done.
Can we afford to wait for them?
Well, I like the question you asked because the answer is already embedded in it. We're already waiting. Nothing is happening. The question is, can we afford to wait any longer? And I think government should give proper attention to recalibrating processes, procedures in the public service, and trenching meritocracy, getting very tough about, getting out, people who are not productive, It just has to happen because let's face it, we have great policies. As a consultant, I've worked with so many of the ministries, departments, and agencies. On their shelves are wonderful policies, wonderful, well thought out policies. But there's this big abyss between policy and results, between knowing what has to be done and implementation, between sharing the vision and people catching the vision. The people at the top, that's the end on its own. They're making money for themselves. Fine. They're not evangelizing the vision. They're not evangelizing the purpose. They're not evangelizing the quality of life or the standard of living issues. So it's just a job. But if Nigeria is going to move forward, every civil servant must see it as a crusade. It's not just a job, it's a crusade. And that's the thing that's really missing.
The reason why I ask you this question is, you've heard of ministers who come in, for instance, and work with consultants, to achieve the results that they're able to achieve. And over the years, year in, year out, we've seen that we abandon the civil service. And we've also talked about how we abandon thinking. But when you say that, we actually have well thought out policies and that the gap is from, thinking of the policy to implementation, it does raise, very major questions as to, where exactly, should we be looking at? Is it the political will and political will on whose part? Is it the part of the civil servant or the part of the, the political elite whom they usually have to work with from time to time?
Well, usually I don't give my answers to questions like this in public because my views are not politically correct. There was a time in this country when we had to worry about federal character, for example. We wanted everybody to be inclusive. But the states they're running their own educational systems, they're running everything. I think we should move away from that. If I had to have a brain surgery today, I'm not going to start asking where the surgeon is from. I just want the best guy to do the best job. There's some things we're going to have to drop to make the public service work. It's a lot. The ministers are political appointees, as it were. Some of them have campaigned to come into office. Some of them feel that they are owed something. They have brothers and sisters and so on that they want to make essays and all of that stuff. That system doesn't work. Our people are also quite shameless. Our leaders are shameless. You indict someone for something. I would have thought he would hide his head in shame, but they come and keep quarreling about wanting to stay in office. But you look at other countries, your name is mentioned, you resign honorably, you save the name of your family. Here we don't have all those kind of scruples. I think the current administration, I think Mr. President should sit with his ministers and say, these are the results I want. Or he should have done that before he appointed them, and then hold them to the fire. They have to get the job done. When your economy is in a recession, when the times are uncertain, it's better to say you're sorry than to ask for permission. I think people should be aggressive, proactive. I think people should go out and get things done. Ministers, their essays, and then the ministers shouldn't bring too many consultants, because what you're saying to the public service basically is, I don't think you can do the job, so I'm bringing my own people. And then the public service looks around and says, okay, he or she's brought her own people so they can make some deals happen. There's this mutual mistrust. And it can be addressed at personal leadership level. I think a minister can look at the situation, because I'm sure they know what we're talking about, and do the right thing.
Well, we're going to have to take a moment on Sunrise Daily now. We'll take a break, and Sunrise Daily will continue in just a moment. Do join us again.